Hello chess fans and welcome to Chess 5, and today I am going to show you the game between two world chess champions, and the name of those two champions are Mikhail Tal and Mikhail Botvinnik. All those who don't know who these top players are, I must tell them that Mikhail Botvinnik was the 6th world chess champion and Mikhail Tal was the 8th world chess champion. So obviously these two players have been world champion, and obviously so I've decided to show you that game because obviously world chess champion versus world chess champion, obviously this game is going to be interesting. And as in my title I showed you that how white simply crushed black French defense. It happened in the game, but of course this game is going to be still interesting. So without any further ado, let's dive into the game. So Mikhail Tal started with 1e4 and Mikhail Botvinnik replied with e6, d4, d5, knight to c3, the Winawer variation. Here comes bishop to b4, her pawn pushes to e5, here c5, a3, bishop takes, pawn takes. Until now this is all normal stuff. Here black decided to play queen to c7 and white responds with a powerful move, queen to g4. All those, like for amateurs that who decided to play French for the first, or like who is new in French defense, you can play this opening very well, because if black doesn't know the theory, then I think white is simply going to crush black king. Because basically now white queen is simply attacking the g7 pawn. So the theory says to play but in the game Mikhail Botvinnik decided to play f5. The idea is to protect the pawn on g7 with the queen, but nowadays the theory says to play knight to e7, give up this g7 pawn, and after knight to e7 the theory goes like after queen into g7, rook to g8, queen into h7, here comes c into d4, and now the threat is to capture the pawn with the queen on c3, and it's a check and white will simply lose a rook. So white is forced to come back to d3. White cannot capture the pawn on d4 because there would be check and white will lose a rook on a1. That's why after c into d4 white plays queen to d3, and after queen into e5 check, knight to e2, d into c3, bishop to f4, queen to g7, queen into c3, queen into c3 with a check, knight into c3 and a6. And in this position it's an equal position, but white is slightly better, of course, because white is having an h advanced pawn which is a pass pawn. But after queen to g4 black played f5, which was also not which is also fine move, but okay, not the best. But after f5 Mikhail Tal decided to play queen to g3. All those who is thinking why white cannot capture, then pass end, because after knight into f6 it's better position for black, because first of all black plan is ready. Black wants to castle, his rook file would be open, perhaps black can play e5 in the future attacking the queen, and for now the knight is also attacking the queen on g4. So it's pretty much nice position for black. That's why after f5 white plays queen to g3. Here comes knight to e7, and now the g7 pawn is hanging, which Mikhail Tal simply took the pawn. Here comes rook to g8 attacking the queen, and the knight is also protecting the rook on g8. So Mikhail Tal grabbed another pawn on h7. Here comes c into d4 and come king to d1. All those who are wondering why white played king to d1, because black threat is very simple. He wants to capture the c3 pawn with a check, and white will lose a rook, and you can't even take the pawn because idea is very same. So there are two moves for white, whether to play knight e2 or whether to play king to d1. Knight e2 is also fine, but okay, king to d1 was played, which was also fine, the second best move. Here black played bishop to d7. Here white played queen to h5 check, knight to g6, knight to e2. Now the plan is perhaps to capture the d4 pawn. So black simply pushes the pawn to d3. And here white is not having much to do, because black is threatening the plan to grab the knight on e2 with a check, or going to capture the c2 pawn with a check. So white is forced to capture the pawn on d3, which was played in the game, and now comes bishop to a4 check. King is forced to move. Here comes queen into e5, and it looks like white is in trouble, because black has activated all his pieces. Like perhaps he's going to play knight to c6, perhaps he's going to play d4, and perhaps he's going to even long castle. And so I think it's pleasant position for black. But actually, if you put this position in engine, it's going to say that white is completely better in this position. We're going to see how white managed to convert this position. So after queen into e5, white decided to play bishop to g5. First of all, the idea of playing bishop g5, after black develops the knight, now the black king can no longer castle, because bishop is controlling the d8 square. So after bishop to g5, black decided to play knight to c6, because okay, he still have to develop the pieces. So after knight to c6, white played d4, okay, attacking the queen on e5. So black simply gone back with the queen on c7, and there could be some ideas of moving the knight to a5 and attacking the pawn on c3. So white played h4. For now it doesn't make any sense, because okay, all are wondering, the game is on the queen side, but why the white is pushing the pawn on h4 on the king side? Like white requires a very large amount of moves to make a queen. But you will soon realize what is the idea of white. After h4, black played e5, a very natural move, because the king is in the center. So the basic idea is to open up the center by playing e5. And here white played rook to h3. Very nice move. There are many ideas of playing rook to h3. First of all, the rook on h3 now is protecting the c3 pawn. Second idea could be to play simply rook e3. And the third idea is, now the rook has been activated on h3. So after rook to h3, black decided to play queen to c7, the queen to f7, because the idea of playing queen to f7 is, now knight can move from the g6 square. So white simply captured the e5 pawn. Here knight into e5, rook to e3, and now the plan of white is to play f4. And the knight is pinned, so black will simply lose the knight. That's why black played king to d7, moving the king from this file. So after king to d7, white played rook to b1, giving no time to black. Now the threat is to capture the b7 pawn, and the queen is hanging with a check. So black is forced to play b6. Here comes knight to f4, because white is trying to exchange the pieces. Because in the game, rook e8 was played, but if it would have been simply knight takes on f4, then there would be queen into f7 check, knight into f7, bishop into f4, and believe me guys, this is winning position for white, because white is a pawn up. First of all, white is having bishop pair. Third, white position is very active. It's very active. Perhaps the plan of white can be to play king to d2, followed by rook e1, and there's a huge file open, and as white is a pawn up, so it would be a bit advantage in the early game. That's why after knight f4, Mikhail Botvinnik decided not to trade the pieces so soon, so he played rook to e8, keep the tension. And after rook e8, Mikhail Tal played rook to b4. Very nice move. Now first of all, the rook is attacking the bishop on a4, so bishop have to go back to c6. And you can see in this position, white is playing very actively. One rook is on b4, one rook is on e3, all pieces are on the king, are all in the center and doing a very large amount of attack. And if you compare the pieces from the black, then if you see black, all pieces are very passive, all pieces are in the defensive mode. So it's better for white to attack. That's why in this position white is having a very nice advantage. So after bishop to c6, white decided to play queen to d1. Very fantastic move by Mikhail Tal. The idea is to play c4 and open up the position. First of all, the pawn cannot grab the pawn because it's a pin. And the second idea could be to capture the knight with a pawn. First of all, the queen cannot capture the rook, capture the knight because the rook d4 is coming and queen will be lost. So bishop would be forced, and I think perhaps white can simply push c4 and can create a very heavy attack. So after queen to d1, black decided to play knight into f4, decide to trade off some pieces. Actually in this position, if you look closely, then there is no such move that black can generate a counterplay. That's why Mikhail Botvinnik decided to trade the pieces. After knight takes, rook takes, knight to g6, attacking the f4 rook. So comes rook to d4, and now the c4 idea is now more strong. So he can't stop c4, so he first took the rook on e3 with a check, f into e3, and played king to c7, because now it's a little bit less scary after playing king to f7. But still Mikhail Tal went for c4, opening up the position. Of course his d file would be open and white is having a very nice position. That's why he decided to go c4. And in this position, black is not having anything. In the game, black decided to capture the pawn. And if you look closely, if black doesn't capture the pawn, white is simply going to capture the pawn. And black can't even stop it. He can't play rook to d8, protecting this capturing the d5 pawn, because the bishop is covering the d8 square. So you have to capture the pawn, and after capturing the pawn, white played bishop into c4, and now the queen as well as the rook is attacked. So queen is forced to move to g7, bishop into g8, queen into g8, and here white played h5, and in this position black resigned the game. Mikhail Botvinnik resigned the game, and Mikhail Tal won the game with the white pieces. So guys, it was a very fantastic game, as it was the game between two world chess champions. Mikhail Botvinnik is the 6th world chess champion and Mikhail Tal is the 8th world chess champion. So obviously this game is very interesting, was very interesting. So guys, if you like this game, then please like to my video. If you are new to my channel, then please subscribe to my channel. I will come up with these new videos for you. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.